This is going to be a part two of looking at Colle Capital, and it's the usual: play some video clips, show some screen captures, and I'll first start off with this video between Tarek and another gentleman, but this time we'll take a different approach to this.
You know, we realized there's a whole set of other kind of interesting concepts that we felt that we wanted to kind of look at. And we have a partnership with a company called Colle Capital. Colle is like a chess move. I'm not a chess expert. It's an early stage venture firm that we've partnered with.
Let's take a look at this chess move a little bit closer. There's a chess strategy called the Colle system. And this is from a YouTube channel called Hanging Pawns.
The Colle system is basically three moves: d4, knight f3, and whatever black does, you play e3. This is already the Colle system. Now, as I said, there are two different ones. The Koltanovsky, or the classical Colle, is c3, and then developing your knight to d2 and your bishop to d3. The Zuckertort is bishop to d3 and then b3, bishop to b2. Why the Colle system is simple to play is because not only do you not have to memorize a lot of theory, the strategy behind the opening is easy to follow, and that.
So it's a opening strategy that's easy to follow. And they have different chess pieces, and some will reinforce others. And the whole idea behind this opening strategy, and watching more videos about chess, is effective if the opponent is playing pieces out in the center. If they go off to the side, you can't use this approach. You have to take a different route. But in terms of like, if you think about it with HYLN, is that they're one of these pieces on this chessboard. And I know in the background, one of them is agility, another one's GE. And a more recent kind of realization on my part is another piece of this board is this Victoria person. And there's a chess strategy called the Colle system.
That's why I think it keeps popping up even on the highest level. Magnus Carlsen used it, Gata Kamsky used it, like many strong players have used the Colle system. The strategy is simple, so you don't have to be a good player or a very experienced player to understand it or to remember it, but it's also not easy to play against, so it's not an easy opening to face. Okay, so even if black is a great player and you are a beginner who knows what to do out of the opening in the Colle, you're still going to have a fine position. You'll know what to do, and it's not easy to refute. There is no way to refute it by brute force. Okay, so let's set up a position. First, we are going with the Colle Koltanovsky system, or the classical Colle. Okay, so pawn to e6. You continue with your normal Colle development, bishop to d3. This bishop belongs here, and the control of the e4 square is going to be the main theme of the classical Colle. So all of your pieces are going to be pointing towards e4 and the e4 break. The main strategic aim of this opening is to break with e4 and open up your light squared bishop and start an attack. So c5, which is one of the most common moves, we play pawn to c3, we've created our pawn triangle, and from here on, you can call this stage 2 of the Colle. You're playing for e4.
So you develop an early game, and then they have a stage 2 of this game, and it looks like most of it is positioning these pieces so they focus on a particular spot on the chessboard. Now, in terms of HYLN, and they're a small piece of the bigger picture, what is position e4 on this chessboard? Who is the other opponent? I don't know.
Whatever happens, you want your knight on d2, you're going to castle, you may play rook e1, you may play queen e2.
Now, is castling, is that like the equivalent of GE breaking up into three different companies? Or is that Stephen Pang jumping over to AirJoule? I don't know. It's just there's more to it than just HYLN creating generators at this point.
To reinforce E4 and push E4.
So what differentiates Colle Capital?
I think it's the way we build relationships with our founders and the way we help them to flourish. And really, we're not a micromanagers. We very much support system, but we open doors for them. We get to know them really well. We become friends with our founders, and we add value in a very different way from other firms. I would like to think. We really we help them with customer introductions. We help them with strategy. I joke, I'm biochemistry economics major, but I also have a minor in psychology. And I feel like I use psychology all day long in my job. So it's ironic.
I think we all do.
Exactly. So it's kind of ironic how it plays out. But I am there for my founders, and my whole team is to really help them with, critical decisions. When they need to make a decision about hiring somebody, or when they need to make a decision about changing direction.
Would that be a strategic pivot?
There's a lot of hard decisions, and it's not all up and to the right. So we very much focus on that and being a support system for them, and ultimately their confidant too.
If a public as the CEO of a publicly traded company, you want to hop on the bandwagon and say, oh, see, we're involved in data centers, so that's why we're going to be, a huge beneficiary from AI and all that. But let's dig a little deeper into this Flexnode company.
Yes, please dig deeper.
So Flexnode is a tiny company. According to LinkedIn, they have less than 50 employees. And importantly, Flexnode is not a data center operator. What they do is they make these racks. So here's a picture of one of the racks that Flexnode makes. So Flexnode makes these, big, metal boxes with racks on it that they sell these racks to actual data center operators. And then the data center operators can put their computers and servers or whatever into these racks that Flexnode makes. So Flexnode does not operate their own data center. They make these racks, which they supply to actual data centers. Now, the idea is...
It's almost like a portable data center that you need someone in logistics to ship it to a location. I don't know if Tarek Sultan knows of any logistics companies that operate on a global basis.
That Flexnode would purchase these Carnot generators, put the Carnot generator into the rack, and then that Carnot generator could supply electricity to the to power the data center. And
now, if you can't really dig deep to discover this, but you kind of have to dig around. But if you take a look at Colle Capital's portfolio companies, you'll notice that one of them is Flexnode. So Colle Capital is backing Flexnode, and Colle Capital is backing HYLN, and I'm thinking, and I'm pretty sure that Victoria said, HYLN, put your generators in Flexnode, and Flexnode, you can power your generators, power your data center things or units with HYLN's generator.
They would sell the rack with the Carnot generator as kind of a complete package, which then they will sell to the data center operators. However, this is a non-binding letter of intent, and according to HYLN's own admission, the customer LOIs that we've discussed are non-binding letters of intent that are subject to performance criteria and execution of binding agreements with customers. Similarly, the data center opportunity we discussed is contingent on successful performance and early deployment of the Carnot generators. So this non-binding letter of intent from Flexnode, all Flexnode said is that, okay, right now the Carnot generator, it hasn't even been tested. We don't know if it works. You have all these manufacturing problems that you are...
But it's backed by the same venture capital firm. It's an arranged kind of thing.
Admitting to. Now, if you can get it to actually work and prove that it actually works and is actually legit, then we will consider buying 20 of them.
Let's go back to the first video.
We realize there's a whole set early stage. The advantage of doing that is that it gives us people are investing alongside of us that are in many cases much smarter than we are, better connected. So they actually give us some validation as around some of the concepts that we're looking at. But more importantly, we interact with the management teams over 3 or 4 or 5 year period. So we get to see firsthand which ones of those management teams are going to be winners, and you can kind of double down and reinvest in those businesses. And then the more recent type of innovation we've been doing is around this area of SPACs. There's one called Queen's Gambit. It's the same principles that we backed out of Colle Capital.
Now, Queen's Gambit is another chess move. It follows this theme. The Queen's Gambit is more complicated, and they have like 12 different variations. One where you accept the bait, and the other one where you decline the bait. I'm not going to go into it at any depth, but let's take a look at what is this Queen's Gambit from a VC perspective.
I'm Karen Snow, head of U.S. listings here at NASDAQ, and it's my great pleasure to be speaking with Victoria Grace, founder of Colle Capital and CEO of Queen's Gambit Growth Capital. Queen's Gambit is the first ever entirely female-led SPAC and is about to complete its business combination with Swivel, a global tech startup based in Dubai that provides a...
What is this Swivel company that's based in Dubai? Now, it turns out that not only Colle Capital is invested into it, but Tarek Sultan with Agility, he invested money into it too. And if he invests money to it, I'm going to assume it's going to be transporting things either with trucks or shipping containers in some emerging market countries.
Semi-private alternative to public transportation for those who cannot afford to access private options. Victoria, congratulations. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
No, it turns out it's kind of like a competitor with Uber ride sharing. So it's not like transporting cargo, it's transporting people from point A to B in emerging markets, and they want to take this on a global scale. And the CEO of the company, which is pictured here, I think his name is Mustafa or something, but he also sits on the advisory board of Colle Capital.
It's building a mass transit system for middle class. It's a unique opportunity. We're not cannibalizing existing services, but we're kind of creating a new market trend, which is caters mostly for middle class. And by that, our value proposition is how do we provide, or what we think about day and night is how we provide a reliable, affordable, safe, convenient service. The biggest is the problem that we're solving, right? It's a mega problem, not only limited to a certain country or a certain continent. It's a worldwide problem, right? It's an emerging markets problem. It's a completely uncharted territory. So it's a space that has been traditionally limited to governments.
A space that's limited to government. So there's some sort of government involvement. That's another kind of ingredient in this recipe.
And governments have done quite a lot, but still there's so much room for improvement, right? So we look for cities that are suffering the most from this problem, right? So a typical city of Swivel would be an emerging market city that have mega population, that have broken public transit, that have a tech-savvy population, all of which we've found in emerging markets, right? So for us, this is kind of where our area of interest. Being an African startup and being built out of Egypt, and we see Africa as kind of the natural extension for Swivel, right? One of the most interesting.
So it was started off in Egypt. Its headquarters was moved to Dubai, and they started operations, and well, part of their operations was in an emerging market of Africa. And if you're going to take a look at some of these this is the stock chart for Swivel. And taking a look at Queen's Gambit, it went from Queen's Gambit Growth Capital to Pivotal Holdings, and then it went from Pivotal Holdings to Swivel Holdings. But Queen's Gambit Victoria had 8.6 million shares, about 6,000 of those were warrants, and just before there was I think it was a 25-to-1 reverse stock split, she pulled out most of her shares, and she didn't touch the warrants, and then the following year she pulls out the warrants, and she basically reduced her position by over 95%, whereas with HYLN, 95% of her initial position is still in that company. But if you're looking at a stock chart and go, oh, it's $250, you have to take the $250 and divide that by 25, and then you get $10. And if you invested, if you bought 1,000 shares of Queen's Growth Capital, after the reverse stock split, you would be left with 40.
Problems to solve was the problem of mass transit, right? A lot of people have tried to solve for mass transit, has been for the longest time limited to governments, and has been extremely subsidized, not at the best state of affairs, and definitely a space that's ripe for disruption in a way, right? Moving millions of people and moving kind of the masses across the world, and specifically in emerging markets that struggle the most. And for us, emerging markets there was a great opportunity for emerging markets to leapfrog in a way, because...
To leapfrog. Where have we heard leapfrogging from before?
But it proved that what we could do. And then once you have that proof point, you're going to leapfrog off of it, and you're going to stand on those shoulders and leapfrog again.
And where does leapfrogging come from?
As global view with respect to the emerging markets, as we look forward to the emerging markets, it's very important that we try to leapfrog some of the sort of technologies and approaches that were first adopted in developed economies, and try to start off the bat with the best possible approach to doing business. And I think
it's probably just a coincidence.
I'll tell you first, same here, and why.
Now, this gentleman to the left, he is, I think, some global head of transportation as a service with Swivel, and he came from Kareem, which is a competitor of Swivel.
Why can't we do the same here, right? So it was more of a regional thing. Versus at Swivel, it's a completely different world. Swivel is a very ambitious. I feel the ambitious of Swivel is a lot more, even more than we used to have at Kareem. And the biggest reason why Swivel's ambitions is a lot more is because this problem statement is not the problem statement that has been solved anywhere in the world. It's not like we can say there is someone like Swivel in Europe who has already done it. There's a lot of learnings that we can do, and we can take, and we can scale.
Learnings, and he's talking about scaling
Much faster only in this region. Swivel is more of a global play, and with you being and now that we have also gone IPO, I mean we haven't gone IPO yet. We are going hopefully in at the end of the year. At that time, it kind of really feels like Swivel is an organization that is a lot more ambitious and a lot more driven on making sure that we change the world for better across.
That's kind of like a difference from HYLN, is just they don't seem as ambitious. They're more like cold, reserve, and calculating, and you don't really know you kind of have an idea of what they're planning behind the scenes, but you don't really know for sure. It seems like still some sort of a science fair experiment project kind of thing that's slowly happening in the background.
From a founder's perspective, again, with ambition, there's a lot Swivel is a lot super fast in terms of iteration, super fast in terms of turnaround, super fast in terms of making sure there's one core value that we have is today, not tomorrow, right? And that is something that I felt is really different. It can be good and bad. Sometimes it tires you. But if you're really driven by purpose and mission, that's something that also really keeps you going. So that's that piece.
What do you see as the biggest opportunity as well as the biggest challenge right now in the Pakistani market for Swivel?
I think for us, I don't know how many of you guys know about Swivel, but basically what we do is we build mass transit for middle class, specifically, commuters for middle class. And we've seen the problem, we started out of Cairo, basically, we quickly expanded now in 6 cities. And we've seen the same problem that we've seen in Cairo, Alexandria, in Karachi, in Lahore, and Islamabad, which is basically middle class cannot really find a solution that taps into the 3 things: the affordability, the convenience, and reliability. So we stand actually for logic, basically. We see that we are the logical solution to the problem. We bring the 3 pillars together. So we see a huge market, basically, or huge commuters actually is a problem that...
Now, is HYLN the logical solution for a problem, and is that problem a global one?
Even I and everyone around us, all of us suffer from going to work, going to school, going to university. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, you basically even the problem is amplified if you're a woman. So commuting to work, commuting between cities, commuting between countries eventually, we've seen that this has been, everyone is struggling, and it's a daily struggle that you have to go through. So we see that the opportunity is the mass size of the market, basically. It's something that taps everyone's daily life, I'd say. The challenge is how do you build, how do you hire the best of the best? How do you get the best of the best along that believes in the same vision in such a very tough space, and build a solution that's organized solution in the middle of all of this chaos, I would say, in emerging markets. Yeah.
Environment for those who don't have access. On logistics side, I should say that we invest in digital health, fintech, and logistics. On logistics side, it's around emissions and carbon footprint and creating those greener solutions. So,
would a Carnot generator be a greener solution?
I can't say we have a box that we check off. We certainly want to make sure that there is different parameters appropriate for each company that we focus on, and we try to educate our companies. It's one earlier stage, we just want to plant the seed with the management team that that's how they should be thinking about it. On the later stage, I think every company is going to be reporting ultimately the ESG parameters down the road. I think
that's also something that Tarek Sultan mentioned, is that ESG is going to be on the forefront of the ways that companies would be doing business.
It's going to be a must. And with Queen's Gambit, it was very much focused for us because it's a later stage company. So with Swivel in particular, it has multiple areas that really resonate with us. One is social justice, by allowing people that can't afford Uber to get access to public transits that's affordable, to get to basic things like better healthcare, or get to university for education, or to a job. And women are biggest beneficiaries in those geographies. So that was one big element. And the second element is, of course, it's a technology company. It has a software platform that allows to have much more efficient utilization of buses, and therefore creates less pollution, less congestion. So there's an environmental piece here that's very important to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're very much looking forward to having Swivel on NASDAQ.
Well, that's all I have for this video. It's definitely a interesting problem with a chessboard. There's multiple pieces on it. There's strategy involved, and somehow HYLN fits into it. But time will tell what moves are being made where, and what's this interest in was it position E4 that the Colle capital system, not the capital, the chess system that makes an advance into. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.